Hey guys, this is a little bit different video. I don't know how to explain it, but it's different. That's all I gotta say. Okay, welcome back to the CrimeCast. My name is Ryan and I am your host for this episode, like always, but I do want to say that this audio may be fucked up because I'm in a very echoey room and I don't want to re-record this somewhere non-echoey at the moment. So yeah, so I was very sorry if it's very echoey, but I will be getting a mic cover, so hopefully that will help with the echo. But for now, you're gonna deal with the echo you hear in the background. So I'm very sorry about that. Hello, my name is Ryan, and you're listening to the CrimeCast. In this show, we will be talking about true crime cases, unsolved mysteries, and cryptid creatures from all over the world, from the mountains of the Himalayas to the suburbs of Los Angeles. And welcome to Part 5 and Episode 14 of the CrimeCast, Part 5 of me covering some of the most haunted locations in some US states. I'm very sorry if you hear the echo, like I said before, and also I'm back. What the fucking do? College has been a pain in my ass. It's like the only thing I can think about. I've really, this semester, I have read a total of fucking like 3 fucking essays so far, and it's like bam, bam, bam. It's like essay on top of essay on top of essay, but that's what I get for being a communication studies major. I gotta write about stuff I don't like writing about. Okay. Anyways, we will be so in today's episode, we will be heading down to Atchison. I'm very sorry if I mispronounced that. Kansas, and investigating the Sallie House. This house is said to be haunted by the spirit of a little girl named Sallie, which is how the house got its name. But there's a question going around, and that question is the house really haunted by a demon who is disguising itself as a little girl? We'll be getting into all of this in the episode. Very sorry, this is a short episode, just a quick little place to visit. But I think next episode is gonna be a long one, but we'll get into that later on. Kansas, the Sallie House, background and the history of the house / property. Construction of the house began in the mid 1800s and had been commissioned by the Finney family, and the house would also be used as Dr. Charles Finney's kind of like office. So that's the main reason this house was built, for Finney or Dr. Charles to use it as his office. During this time, once it was built, the family would live in the upstairs part of the house, while Dr. Charles used the downstairs area as his office. Now, we're not really sure how much of the downstairs was used as the office. There's not a lot of information, like was the entire downstairs? Not a lot, but we'll get into that later on. The family would live in the house until 1947, and it's said that 4 members of the Finney family had died of natural causes in the house. So that's like the first piece of haunted information, is that members of the family had died in the house. So there's already like a record of death on top of the main spirit / victim of the house. I want to say, I'm not sure how to really say it. So some sources say that at some point, we're unsure when, the family had moved out of the house due to lack of space. Like I said, some websites say it was 1947. Others said it was much later. So it's kind of toss and turn there. And it's also unclear if it was before 1947 or Dr. Charles used the downstairs as his office, so it's not sure if they moved out after, like, maybe Dr. Charles was done in there, or yeah. So that's kind of like a mix. Like, nobody's that 100% sure of how long Dr. Charles used the house as his main operation point, I want to say. But that's kind of like a problem with the history of this place, is that we're unsure of what actually happened in the house. But we do know about what happened to a little girl who was a patient of Dr. Charles, and which is how the house also got its name, Sallie. So as the legend goes, or the story goes, a mother comes into Dr. Charles's office one day with her 6-year-old daughter, Sallie. She told Dr. Charles that her daughter was experiencing extreme abdominal pains, and Dr. Charles believed the girl's appendix was going to burst if he didn't perform surgery. So he decided he's going to perform the surgery to make sure it doesn't, like, burst, basically. But during this time, there was anesthesia involved. There was some sort of anesthesia, but Dr. Charles did not wait for that to go into full effect because he wanted to get to her appendix. I don't know what I was saying before. Appendix, before anything really tragic happened. So during the entirety of the operation, as the legend says, the girl experienced everything. She felt everything. She felt Dr. Charles cutting into her, and she, of course, was screaming out in pain. Of course, Dr. Charles didn't stop this because he was like, you're gonna die either way. You're either gonna die with your appendix bursting, because it's like the 1900s, basically, or this is gonna happen to you. Anyways, it is believed that even though the girl felt everything, she would die on the operating table due to bleeding out. So that's the story, is that the girl bled out to death because of Dr. Charles. Like, that was his reasoning. He's like, so people think that because he was so quick into getting into her, there's a lot of holes in the story. I'm trying to say there's a lot of holes in this whole fucking house. Like, you don't know, like, some information is public, other information people had to speculate or, like, think about with, like, the history records and shit, historical records, housing records, all that shit. Anyways, that's the main background we need to know. Let's get into the first signs of hauntings in the house, or the first haunting in general. It wouldn't be until 1992 that the hauntings of the Sallie House really took place. Basically, from the time that the Finney family left to the time in 1992, the house was just like any other house on that block, quiet, sweet, and peaceful. Apparently, it was also abandoned at some point in time, but we're not sure for how long or for when the time period was. Anyways, in 1992, a young couple, Deborah and Tony Pickman, would rent the house because they were looking for a family home. What they didn't know was what they were about to experience in the home after they moved in. In an interview with Zach Bagans, host of the Ghost Adventures show, Tony told him that the first few months of living in the house, it was normal. Nothing out of the ordinary happened, meaning like they had no paranormal experiences. Now, the first signs of the paranormal was the Pickmans noticing that the lights would start turning on and off by themselves. And at first, they're like, maybe we just, thought we turned them off, but apparently we didn't. They were coming up with reasons of how this was happening, like anybody would normally do. They were wrong. But one morning they came downstairs and they saw that all of the photos on the wall, all the photos they had up on their wall were turned upside down, and one of them was shattered. So this is even weirder. So they're like, oh, maybe we're being haunted now all of a sudden. They were very confused still. I would be too. So that's when like the paranormal stuff would start to happen. It seemed that whatever was happening to the Pigmans was only targeting Tony physically because his wife wasn't experiencing any physical touches, but she did see things. So Tony was experiencing like touches, pushing, like stuff like that, while Deborah was just seeing the paranormal happen, meaning she saw the lights turn on and off, saw things, objects move, maybe probably saw something out the corner of her eye type of thing. Now, according to the official Sallie House website, quote, fires broke out in the house. The operating area would become cold, end quote. Now, the operating area, people assumed it's either the living room or it was the kitchen, so it's kind of, that's what the operating room is. It's basically where Dr. Charles would do his operation, so people think it was either the, like I said, the kitchen or the living room. We're not 100% sure. Anyways, during their time at the house, people believed that Sallie was the ghost attacking Mr. Pigman, and he would dub her the, quote, man-hating ghost, end quote. Now, the reason they believed that this was Sallie, of course, was like the history of the house, and probably because she was like a little girl and they were kind of having like a little girl spirit. They probably saw her. Now, the reason that they dubbed her the man-hating ghost is, of course, her hatred towards men, and this could be because of what Dr. Charles did to her, killing her, murdering her, all of that stuff. Now, this is just the first haunting, and not a lot is known because the Pigmans were kind of like embarrassed. They're like, yeah, we don't like talking about this. This is kind of like, oh, we're known as the couple who like lived in the Sallie house. They probably don't want that. They have kids, and they don't want to be like the couple known to be from the Sallie house type of thing. So yeah. Okay, sorry about that weird audio glitch that happened when I was trying to close out something. Anyways, the main haunting. So this is the hauntings that everybody would have experienced in the house. With each visit to the house, people will experience many different things. But here are some of the most common things people have experienced. Investigators have experienced their equipment stop working, batteries being completely drained, objects being moved, people leaving the house with unexplained bruises and scratch marks. And just like with Mr. Pigman, mainly with the male investigators, they would have been physically touched. In many areas of the house, guests will experience cold areas or temperatures dropping suddenly. So some of these are very common ghost things. There's also been experiences in the nursery, which is where the Pigmans had the nursery, so that was their nursery, and that's where Sallie is believed to live now. So, investigators would go up there, play with the toys, and of course, ask Sallie to, hey, turn on this toy. She will do that. So investigators do, of course, try to egg on the spirits, so that's probably why they get touched and shit. But still, even with simple things like asking Sallie to turn on a toy, it's kind of like, oh wow, that's crazy. So during these investigations, this is when people are like, maybe there's actually a demon here and he's in disguise. So let's talk about that. We'll keep this in the same realm as the investigation haunting type stuff. So before the Pigmans bought the house, there were many rumors that occult members performed rituals in the basement, and this is actually true, since there's an imprint of a pentagram on the basement floor. There, you can see it clear as day. You go down there. There it is. Many other ritual items have also been found in the basement. Just come up with your imagination on that, because ritual items is different to everybody, so just come up with something. Now, here's the question. Could these rituals have opened a gateway or portal for more demonic spirit or spirits to enter the home? That's the main question that, people are asking since they see this pentagram. They found this pentagram. During many investigations, and even according to the Pigmans, an aggressive male spirit also lives in that house. Now, who is this aggressive male spirit? people believe is Dr. Charles, still living in the house and, you know, kind of hating people because he's like, oh, fuck this. Little girl thinks I murdered her, or whatever whatever a doctor would think, I don't know. But then investigators would start to wonder if this male spirit could be the only spirit, and he's disguising himself as a little girl who people have called Sallie because of the history of the house. Because it's like kind of written down in the past that there was a little girl that died in the house. Now, this could be proven because in other demonic presence cases, haunting, stuff like that, this seems to be like a common occurrence that the demon will disguise themselves as a quote, as like a nicer spirit or even a little kid. And of course, this is to gain trust from the people, the living, so then they can get more power, stuff like that. So it's kind of like a power dynamic, like they're asking for power. Like that's what these ghosts, these spirits want, is power. Like the demonic presence want power, so they can, you know, have that. So they do that. And then, of course, after this trust is gained, they kind of start to show their true selves. Like they start harming people. They start doing this. Now, a common example of this is actually with the Annabelle doll. And it is this doll, this Raggedy Ann doll. Creepy enough as it is, I will always say this: Raggedy Ann dolls are really creepy. I had one growing up. Well, I don't know if it was my mom, but I remember there was one we used to have. We had two of them. I think it was a boy and a girl, too. It wasn't just two, but they just creeped me out so much. They just were there. Anyways, that's like this doll. And it is believed to actually be possessed by a demon who had disguised itself as a little girl to gain the trust of its owner, of the doll's owner. So yeah. But many investigators have visited the house, many investigators have visited the house, believe 50-50 about if there's like a demon there. So like 50 of them are like, oh, there's no demon. 50 of them are like, yes, there's a demon. And then you got the other probably quarter that think, oh, there's both. So yeah. So it's kind of like, who is it? But in almost all investigations, in the wrap-up notes, it is believed that the main spirit of the house is Sallie. But of course, there's not a lot of evidence about the Sallie House that I'm very surprised about. You know, it's this very popular case, and still there's not a lot of evidence about it, which is crazy. Anyways, that was the Sallie House. So yeah, we visited the Sallie House, located in Atchison, Kansas. Once again, sorry if I mispronounced the name there. But anyways, that out of the way, we will be visiting in our next episode, which is going to take a while because there's a lot of history with this one, or a lot of information needed for it. And that will be, we are heading to one of the original 13 American colonies, and that is Massachusetts, to the small town of Fall River. And you may be guessing, if you know the name, then know the story. But we will be going and visiting the Lizzie Borden house, where another unsolved axe murder took place. Well, it's kind of solved, kind of unsolved type of thing. And this actually inspired a nursery rhyme, which is kind of creepy, but also want to note the nursery rhyme is kind of wrong. What? But we'll get into that once I've released that episode. Yeah, that's it. See ya.